Welcome everybody to TheTitleFight.com. Brandon Stubbs, Steve Gallegos, and Gordie Tamayo recapping last night's demolition job by Gennady Golovkin versus Curtis Stevens over in New York. Pretty exciting bout, hype leading up to it. Curtis Stevens was doing a pretty good job hyping up the fight on his end with some outside of the ring antics with coffins and talking funerals when ended up getting him being laid to rest there. Brandon, take us through the bout a little bit here. A lot of discussion, a lot of critics talking down about Gennady Golovkin, but did he silence some of those last night? What do you think?
He probably got hit, maybe the second most that I've seen him since he kind of became a mainstream fighter. He got hit a little bit more in his fight with Nonito earlier this year, and he took some of Stevenson's punches, very flush, very hard punches from Stevenson, and he walked through them. So we know Stevenson is a legit puncher, so that did show that he can literally take a hard punch from a middleweight fighter. So I don't think there's really much you could criticize in regards to that. He took those punches, and he gave a lot of punches right back. And in Stevenson's case, he did a little bit better job than I think a lot of us thought he would. Granted, he did take punishment, but he didn't take as much punishment as he could have if the fight would have kept on going. His corner did the smart thing in stopping it and saying, hey, enough's enough. We've seen enough. There's no more of these to continue on. But he did give a better effort than a lot of us thought he would, but we all knew it was going to end. We just didn't know how early it was going to end.
And early on, Curtis caught a nice shot that dropped him, somewhat comedic. People were sharing that picture. It was a pretty nice shot. But he came back, props to him, like you said. He came back and fought through it, and he was trying. He's just completely outgunned, as you stated, Steve. One thing that I was thinking about, going through this and watching that, though, it kind of reminded me of when Hopkins was fighting Morat, and, people were saying that he was getting hit a little bit too much, but in the end result, he was actually just trying to make a fight, make the fans get into it. And, Abel Sanchez was heard before the fight and even, after, post-fight, talking about that, they're trying to give the fight fans, excitement. They want knockouts. They want the American public to accept Golovkin, and they feel that's kind of how they had to fight. Watching them take those shots from Stevens, who's a legitimate puncher, like you said, and, him walking through those shots just to myself is pretty impressive. Talk's already in the mix of him stepping up against some other guys. Steve, what's your interpretation about too much risk, not enough reward, so people turning down this guy, and so he's taking who he can and he's just running through them?
Yes, who in the middleweight division wants to step into the ring with a guy like Triple G, He's got the entire package, He's got a great jab, mixes in his punches very well, hits very hard, can take a hard shot, man. He's taken some shots from some hard punchers, particularly Curtis Stevens, who's had, a high knockout ratio and scored, three first-round knockouts in his last 4 fights. So, that's impressive right there to see Triple G just walk through those shots, and just make it look easy. So, yes, it is, too much risk, not enough reward, not unless the purse, the money is right. A Sergio Martinez fight probably makes the most sense, even though Martinez, is at the end of his road at this moment. I really don't see anyone else that want to step in the ring with Triple G at this point. He may end up, having to move up in weight, in order to seek bigger fights at 168 or 175.
Yeah, and Chavez Jr.'s name has been thrown in the mix because of that, getting a bigger name, bumping up in weight, and he's talked about willing to, fluctuate in weight classes. They're jumping up and down just to find the right fight. So I got to throw this out there, though, and Brandon, I think this will be a good question to field to you here. Whatever happened to fighters just wanting to fight the best and carry that strap and that name of champion of the world, of them being just on top of the pyramid here and nobody else being able to compare with them, and instead of just politically pulling each other towards a payday and not willing to step up against a guy for a payday?
You said the 2 words right there, politics or political and payday are the 2 most dangerous P's there is in boxing right now. Politics between the networks and between the fight promotions will prevent a lot of these fights from happening, and paydays. Guys don't want to take a fight to where they could possibly lose their undefeated record unless they're going to get paid. You can call it maybe the Floyd Mayweather effect, if you will, because He's always, some say he handpicks his opponents to protect his zero and to optimize his outcome, his payday. But if it's one of those things, if you can get away with it, why not do it? Unfortunately, in Triple G's case, he's going to kind of fall victim to that on the other end. I don't think he really particularly cares about the payday per se. I think it's more about the competition for him. I think he'll fight anyone they put in front of him, whether it's an A-level fighter or a C-level fighter. He really doesn't care because he's there for the competition of it.
Right.
The paydays will come with that, but the thing is, like you said, other fighters within that division have zero interest in fighting him. I know they will say all the good stuff on Twitter. I saw, rants from Peter Quillen last night. He'll just fight whoever they put in front of him. He's not scared of anyone, yada, yada.
Right.
He says this because he knows the politics of the business are not going to put him in the same ring with Triple G anytime soon. So he can say that, feel comfortable with it, and know that it's never going to happen. He can talk the talk, but the fight will never happen.
Going back to Curtis Stevens, props to him. He came in, and like you said, he did a lot more work than people were giving him credit for initially. There's some possible matchups there that are going to be pretty exciting there, Steve. Maybe some matchups that's thrown out there with him and Rosado, maybe throwing it down. You got Brian Vera in the mix. You got a lot of other people in the 160-pound division there that would be great opposition for a guy like Stevens. Who would you like to see him in the mix with?
Honestly, I want to see him get in the ring with Kid Chocolate Peter Quillen. I mean, I think it's a fight that can't be made as, Curtis, was with Main Events, who's kind of on a neutral ground, as Brandon said. I don't think that he has any network contract, which should make it a pretty easy fight to make. And also, it's a fight that, Curtis has, been talking about for quite some time. Curtis even said he's the one to fight Kid Chocolate. It's all a matter of Kid Chocolate signing the contract. So I think it would be big. Put it in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Both fighters are from Brooklyn. Make it the unofficial Brooklyn Middleweight Championship. It would be great. So that's the fight I want to see.
What about you, Brandon? Anybody in particular you'd like to see him step in with?
The Quillen fight would make sense, and one thing that we saw, Gabe was pretty much in that. Quillen was kind of in a life or death situation there with Gabe Rosario, who I think, Stevens has maybe a little bit more of a power puncher, maybe not as good of a boxer than Gabe, to where if that fight was to happen, Quillen could probably be in some legit trouble, and his chin would definitely get checked and would definitely get tested there. That fight makes sense. A fight with Brandon Vera would make sense, kind of being somewhat of maybe an elimination bout for another title shot amongst the middleweights there in the division. But with him being on neutral ground, he can go to either network. They can even put him back on NBC Sports Network to kind of give him a tune-up fight or a bounce-back fight after this Triple G fight before they find another name on one of the other networks for him to fight. So he's got a lot of options. He didn't really lose any ground in the division, even with last night's loss, because we kind of all knew what was going to happen. He showed us a little bit more. So if anything, he lost, but he gained respect on the same token.
This weekend, we got a pretty exciting triple-header taking place there, Steve. I know you had written about one of them in particular there with Nonito Donaire and Vic Darchinyan Part 2 taking place here. And as another fight on that bout there, the main event with Mikey Garcia and Rocky Martinez there, we got some pretty good clashes that are going to be taking place on this bout. Really like watching Garcia fight. He's very, very crafty, very smart in the ring. What do you see taking place at this bout? What do you see the outcome being?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. Mikey Garcia is, got very quick hands, and he can also punch hard. I think his punching power is very underrated. He's the type that will, stand on the outside, and kind of, box for the first couple rounds. And then, as the fight goes on, be able to stand in front of his opponent, and get into exchanges, make for an exciting fight. But if he does this with someone like Rocky Martinez, this could be an interesting fight, and also Rocky Martinez hits very, very hard, and we have not seen, exactly how well Mikey Garcia can take a punch, and if he can take Rocky Martinez's punch, it'll be an interesting night. But if he catches, in the exchanges, Martinez hurts him, he is in for trouble. I had to give a slight edge to Garcia, based on his hand speed, and his boxing ability. But fisticuffs are going to be flying. It's kind of your classic boxer puncher type of matchup. So, but I would probably have to give the edge to Garcia. I think he's going to probably box more in this fight, avoid the exchanges, and probably cruise to a decision. So Garcia, 12-round unanimous decision.
And what about you, Brandon? Any thoughts on this one or the other matchup between here Donaire and Darchinyan? Both of these guys, they've had great careers. They had some pretty good wars with other fighters as well, and they're coming back again. 7 years later, I believe. Both of them were trying to get that name recognition back on, especially after some unfortunate defeats. What are your thoughts?
I have to say, with full disclosure, Vic Darchinyan is one of my favorite fighters out. I've watched the guy for years and always just loved his fighting style. But this rematch makes completely no sense. They're in two different places in their career. Nonito Donaire, as long as he is actually focused and is in shape and actually trained, unlike his last fight out with Rigondeaux, this should be really light, easy work for him, because Vic Darchinyan is not the same threat he was 4 or 5 years ago. I don't want to say he's a shot fighter, but he's kind of close to that. I think that, over the last couple of years, he's kind of repaired his career and gotten some wins in a row from fighting guys who are on a much lower tier than him. Now that he's going to be fighting a guy that is a top tier, top echelon fighter, he's going to get exposed, and it's going to show that Vic is not who he used to be, and this is a very bad matchup. And the only reason it's happening is both of these fighters are signed with Top Rank. That's the only reason it matters. Only reason why it's happening. There's really no leverage for either guy as far as the win goes, what it'll do as far as rankings go. It's just an easy fight that can be made by Top Rank.
One of the bouts coming up that's pretty exciting, that's been building some good buzz, heading to the city of San Antonio here. And normally, like I've talked to you, Brandon, about, I don't like to give homeboy too much shine because he's getting enough already. And Adrien Broner, again, comes back with some other antics that hit the web in today's day and age. I mean, something that goes viral is going to be in everybody's cell phone in a matter of seconds. And he ends up coming back with some sort of an apology through worldstarhiphop.com on that video being released, and leading up to a big fight like what he has coming up with Marcos Maidana here. I mean, is this the kind of publicity that a guy like this needs? Is he really wanting this kind of publicity, or is the guy just lacking a few brain cells? What are your thoughts here?
I think it's a mixture of a little bit of everything, and I'm just going to be completely honest. If you were to lose, I think what you're going to see Golden Boy is they're definitely going to distance themselves from him. They're not going to promote him or put him in the spotlight, and I see the same thing with Showtime as well, because who really wants to market a guy that's sleazy? Let's just call it what it is. I mean, his antics are just sleazy. They're cheap, but he's an attention whore, and I compared it earlier this week to the Kim Kardashian effect. She's famous for doing nothing, or being on camera doing acts, if you will. Mm-hmm. She's famous for that. She's not famous for actually having a skill set or a talent. Adrien Broner has a skill set and a talent. He doesn't let himself become famous off of that. He just uses that as a vehicle to further do dumb things and get more attention and more spotlight. It's one of those things you got to wonder how focused he truly is in being a boxer. Does he really want to do this, or is he just doing this to further and help him promote the other dumb stuff he has going on in his life? It's very questionable. You kind of got to wonder where the kid's head is at. You can tell he's not in shape right now. He honestly looks every bit of 170 to 180 right now, and we're about 6 weeks out from the fight, so it's going to be interesting to see if he comes in shape, which I'm really questioning if he's going to even make weight, and if he is in shape, what kind of fight he's going to put on. And in the meantime, in between the month and a half we have before the bout, what other dumb antics, what else is going to leak online, or what is he going to say that's going to dig him a deeper hole as far as media goes and as far as fans go leading up to this fight?
can't help but want Marcos Maidana to just crack him and see if he does drop him. Broner's been talking about that he's going to stand there and trade with him. He's came out with the same corny lines, that he usually does, but he's saying he's going to stay in the pocket with him and willing to trade with Maidana. Steve, you've seen what Maidana can do. The whole world knows what he can do as far as packing a punch, but is it going to be enough to stop Broner, to make an effect on him?
Well, that's why they fight the fights, Maidana hits very, very hard, puncher power is underrated. He can of a punch too, Broner, maybe in a little over his head here, thinking it's going to be an easy fight based on the way styles are. If he's going to stand in the pocket and want to trade with Marcos Maidana, it's going to be a big mistake, because what happens, if he catches one of them hard shots? How well can Adrien Broner take a punch? We haven't really seen him in with a devastating puncher as of yet. This is the test here. We're going to see what Adrien Broner is made of. So he better come into shape. He's been, the last few months partying, going on tour, rapping, which I don't think I think Shaq's a way better rapper than Adrien Broner. Broner needs to get his head, out of the gutter and into the gym. He needs to surround himself with better people, enough of his childish antics, and focus on boxing. He's got it all there for him. To me, he's the pound-for-pound heir to Floyd Mayweather's crown, but he's letting it all slip away. He's blowing it, and he's got no one to blame but himself, if he loses this fight.
That's all we got for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have more for you through the upcoming weeks, and please, too, keep tuning in to us. Again, Brandon Stubbs, Steve Gallegos, and Gordie Tamayo with TheTitleFight.com, signing off until next time.